Okay, we're going to solve this equation, and notice that we have this parentheses square minus the number is equal to 0. It's a good idea to isolate these parentheses and then just take the square roots on both sides. With that said, let's go ahead and add 16 on both sides so that we can cancel this out, and then we will have the following. On the left-hand side, we have 2x minus 5 squared, and that's equal to 0 plus 16. Of course, that's positive 16. And then we'll continue, and for this, we can just go ahead and take the square roots on both sides. And don't forget the plus minus on the right-hand side though, right? Okay, and this and that will cancel. First, we are going to have 2x minus 5, and again, let me just split into two parts. 2x minus 5, that's equal to positive square root of 16, and square root of 16 is equal to 4. So this is the first equation we have to solve. Secondly, we still write down the inside, 2x minus 5, and that's equal to, we have the negative right here, and you do the square root of 16, and again, that's 4. So just like this. And of course, you can just continue. Right here, we can add 5 on both sides. They cancel, and then this is 2x equals 9. And of course, divide both sides by 2. We'll be done for the first part. X is equal to 9 over 2. First answer. For the second answer, right here, we'll have to add the 5 first. So that they cancel. And then we have the 2x equals negative 4 plus 5. So that's 1. And finally, you can just divide both sides by 2. And we see that the second answer is positive 1/2. So with that said, this right here is it. Okay, we are going to solve x squared equals 3x minus 2. Well, let's make one side equal to 0 and see what happens. So with that said, let's bring the 3x to the other side by minus 3x on both sides. So we will have this. And in the meantime, let's also add a 2 on both sides. So this and that will cancel. So we have the plus 2 here. All right. And be sure to write the equation in the standard form. So we should have the x squared first. And the next, that's a minus 3x and then plus 2, like this. And that's equal to, well, we have 0 on the right-hand side. So that's what we have. Now, how can we solve this equation? You can try the quadratic formula. You can try to do it by completing a square. But I will try this by factor first. Because in fact, this is factorable. So let me show you. X times x will give us x squared. That's perfect. And what times what will give us positive 2? Well, we will use negative 1 and negative 2. They multiply to be positive 2. And you see, when we have this times this, that's negative 2x. And negative 1 times x, that's negative x. Together, we do have negative 3x, so it checks. So, we can factor this equation to be x minus 1 times x minus 2. However, though, we are solving an equation, so be sure you continue to have the equal to 0. And when we have a factor like this, that's equal to 0, we can have two equations. We set the first factor, namely x minus 1. We set the first factor, namely x minus 1, to be 0. And secondly, we set the second factor, which is x minus 2. We set this to be 0 as well. And then, of course, continue. Here, we add 1. And we're done for the first part. Namely, we get x is equal to 1. For the second equation, plus 2. Like this. And then we see x is equal to 2. So the first answer is 1, and the second answer is 2. So, yeah. Okay, we're going to solve 4x squared plus x minus 1 is equal to 0. And in this case, this is actually not factorable. So you have to either complete the square or use the quadratic formula. It's actually easier to use the quadratic formula in this case because we do have a number 4 in front of the x squared, right? So let me remind you guys, let's write down the a value, which is 4, and the b value is the coefficient of x, which is positive 1. And then the c value is negative 1. And then, of course, we can just go ahead and, of course, you have to remember the quadratic formula first. Let's write down the quadratic formula. X is equal to negative b plus minus square root. And we have b squared minus 4ac. And then all over 2a, like this. And now we can just plug in everything into the formula and then work it out. So have a look. negative b, which we have negative b is 1. So we have negative 1. And then plus minus square root. B is again 1, and then we have to square that. And be sure to use the parentheses. And then we have minus 4, and the a is 4. And the c is negative 1. So here we have negative 1, and we have to use the parentheses for that. Right, so again, this is the c value, which is negative 1. And divide everybody by 2 times a, which is 4. So this right here is the setup. Now we just have to work this out. Here, we get negative 1. And then we have plus minus, and let's open the square root. Well, for this part, let me show you guys on the side. We have the 1 square minus 4 times negative 1. Like this. This is just the inside. Well, 1 square is just 1. And then let's multiply. Negative with all this, negative times negative is going to be positive. 4 times 4 times 1, which is 16. And of course, if you work that out, that will give you 17. So the inside here is 17, and then all divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. Then, let's see. Is it possible for us to simplify square root of 17? Well, it's not a nice number unless you use a calculator to figure out what the decimal is for that, right? So in that case, you can actually just box this for your answer. Right? This is it. Okay, we're going to solve x squared plus 4x plus 1 is equal to 0. And this right here is actually not factorable. So again, either you use completing a square or quadratic formula. I think it's easier to use the completing a square though. So let me show you how to do that. Remember, to do so, you have to make sure we have to have a 1 in front of the x squared, which we do in this case. That's nice. Then the next step is we put the number to the other side first. And we can do so by subtracting 1 on both sides. And then you will see this is going to give us x squared plus 4x. And be sure you leave a space for the magic number. And then right here, you can just work that out. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, like that. Now, we have to work out the magic number. And to do that, you have to remember the little formula. First, look at this number, which we have 4, yeah? What you do is, you take 1/2, and you multiply by this number, which we have, positive 4, and then you square that. So now let's see. 1/2 of 4 is 2. So this right here, we get 2, and then you raise that to the second power. 2 to the second power, we get 4 for that. And this right here is a number that we will have to add on both sides. Like this and like that. And now, the left-hand side, this right here is going to be so nice because you can actually factor it. And if you factor that, you will always get a perfect square. This right here is x plus 2 times x plus 2, and we actually end up x plus 2 square. And then for the right-hand side, negative 1 plus 3, sorry, that's the answer. Negative 1 plus 4, that's equal to 3. Now, we have this to the second power equals a number, so we can just take the square roots on both sides. And don't forget your plus minus. This way, the square root will cancel, and we just get x plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 3. And because we don't know what square root of 3 is unless we use a calculator, so we can just leave it like this. Finally, move the 2 to the other side by subtracting the 2 on both sides. 2 and minus 2 is 0. And then you see x is by itself now. And finally, you can just write down negative 2 plus or minus square root of 3 like this. And you can just leave your answer like this, and we are done. Alright, we're going to solve this equation. 2 times the parentheses of x minus 3 is square, and then plus 25, and that's equal to 9. Notice we have a perfect square right here, right? This parentheses to the second power. And the x is inside of the parentheses only. So it's a good idea to isolate this first, and then just take the square roots on both sides. Let's get to work. First, we have the plus 25 here. we have to minus that on both sides. This way, this and that will cancel, and then we will end up with 2 times the parentheses of x minus 3 squared. And for this, we have to work it out. 9 minus 25, we will end up with negative 16. And then notice, here we have 2 times this parentheses. We have to get rid of the 2 first. Do not just distribute the 2 though. Be sure you divide both sides by 2 because this has a second power, right? So, again, divide the 2 on both sides. And you see this and that will cancel. And then we will end up with x minus 3 and then square, and that's equal to this divided by that, we will end up with negative 8. And now, how would you continue? Usually, we'll just do the square roots on both sides, right? But here we have what? A negative 8. If we have a square root with negative 8 inside, what does that mean? No real value. Good. So, in fact, whenever you have this to the second power, if it's equal to a negative number, you can stop right away. Because again, let me just remind you, anytime you have the x inside, to the second power, if the right hand side is equal to a negative number, this equation has no solution. So I will just go ahead and write that down. So this right here, the answer is just no real solutions. Like that. So this right here will be the response for this question. And the reason that I'm saying no real solution, which I should be saying the same right here as well, no real solution, because we can actually have the imaginary number, but that will be for later on. So just have to remember this for now. So that's it. Okay, we're going to solve x squared that's equal to negative 3x plus 5. Well, I think it's a good idea to make one side equal to 0 and then see if we can factor it. Well, maybe we just have to use the quadratic formula, right? So let me make this side equal to 0, and we can do that by adding the 3 on x on both sides, so that this and that will cancel. And then we will also have to minus 5 on both sides, so that this and that will cancel. Now let's write this down, and we will get x squared plus 3x and then minus 5, and that's going to be equal to 0. Now, can we factor this? Unfortunately, I don't think so. So let's go ahead and use the quadratic formula. And the reason I want to do the quadratic formula is because this right here is an odd number. If I take half of it, I will end up with 3 over 2, which is a fraction. So completing a square is not a good idea unless you really want to work with fractions, which is not so bad though. But anyway, quadratic formula. So here, A is 1, B is positive 3, right? The 3. And then C is negative 5. And now, let me remind you guys, x by the quadratic formula is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then from here, that's just throwing everything into the formula and work that out. So this is negative b, b is 3, so we will have negative 3, like so, and then plus minus square root, put a 3 in here, so we have 3 squared, and then minus 4 times a, which is just 1, and then c is negative 5, so I just have to put that down, and that's what we have. And then all over 2 times a is again 1, so let's just write that down like this. Alright, so now we just have to work this out, so let me just do it on the side for you guys. Right here, when we have 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5, well, 3 squared is 9, and then let's multiply all this. You see negative times negative, that will give us positive. 4 times 1 is 4, times 5 is 20, right? 4 times 5 is 20. And add this up, we get 29, like this. This right here will go inside of the square root, and the square root of 29. We cannot simplify it, which is actually good. Because if you cannot simplify it, what do? Nothing. That's correct. So we just have to finally write down this is negative 3 plus or minus square root. This right here, again, is right here, which is 29. And then all over 2 times 1, which is 2. And then we are done. So that's it. All right, so we're going to solve 2x squared plus 16x is equal to 20. Well, first, you can move the 20 to the other side and try to do it by factoring. But let me tell you, it's not factorable. So you actually have to use either the completing the square or the quadratic formula. Actually, let me show you guys how to do it with the completing the square, right? Because as you can see, all the numbers are even and it actually works out really well. So first, in order to complete the square, we must have a 1 in front of the x squared. But here we have 2. So we will have to divide everybody by 2 first. And you see, 2 divided by 2 will be 1, and then we just have to work out the rest. For the first term, we have x squared, and then we add 16 divided by 2 is 8, and then we have the x. And remember, we are going to complete the square, so leave a space for the magic number, and that's equal to 20 divided by 2 is just 10. Now, let's go ahead and find out what the magic number is. Remember, look at this number, the number in front of the x. And let's do this right here on the side. We first take 1/2 times that number, and then put that in the parentheses and square that. Now, what's half of 8? Yes, 4. And then we raise that to the second power and work that out. 4 to the second power is 16. So this is the number that we will have to add on both sides. And with that being done, the left-hand side is a perfect square. If you factor it, you will get x plus 4 times x plus 4. So you actually will just get x plus 4 squared, and that's equal to this plus that, which is 26. And to continue, we can just take the square roots on both sides, put a plus minus, this and that will cancel. We will just have x plus 4 equals plus or minus square root of 26. And to finish this, we can just minus 4 on both sides. And we will see the final answer is just x equals negative 4 plus or minus square root of 26, like that. And unfortunately, or maybe I should say fortunately, 26 instead of the square root cannot be simplified this, so you just leave it as how it is. That's it. Alright, we are going to solve 3x squared minus 7x is equal to 20. Well, let's move the 20 to the other side. So, to do that, minus 20 on both sides first. So, we will see we get the 3x squared and then minus 7x and then minus 20, and that's equal to 0. Now, shall we use the completing square or shall we use the quadratic formula? Well, better. We can actually do this by factoring because it works. You'll see, right? So if you just try it, it works out really nicely. For the 3x squared, let's just have 3x times x. Of course, that will give us 3x squared. Now, for the negative 20, what times 4 give us negative 20? Well, 4 and 5 will be 20, and we just have to make one of them being negative, right? And the correct combination is I will just put a negative 4 right here and a positive 5 right here. Because this times this will give us negative 12x. And this times that will give us positive 5x. Together, we do end up with negative 7x. So we know this right here checks. So the factor for this is 3x plus 5, because that was a positive 5. And then the next one is x minus 4 is equal to 0. And to finish this, we'll just make the first factor 3x plus 5 to be 0. And then the other one, x minus 4, that should also be 0. And of course, to finish that, minus 5 on both sides. And we get 3x is equal to negative 5. And then of course, we can just divide both sides by 3. So the first answer is x is equal to negative 5 over 3. And then for this one, actually let me box this first. For this one, we just have to add a 4 on both sides. So they cancel, and then we get x by itself, and that's equal to 4, like that. So 2 answers. The first one, negative 5 over 3, and the other one is just 4. So sometimes factoring still works, even though the numbers, they don't look so friendly. Okay? That's it.